Chapter 7. Megan gasped, unable to believe her ears. The color rose to Emma's cheeks and her eyes sparked as shock gave way to anger. Deliberately, she smoothed her apron over her knees, tilted her chin a little higher, and said firmly, "Mrs. Haskell, I'm sure you're so exhausted from the long ride you don't know what you're saying." Mrs. Haskell looked puzzled as she tried to explain, speaking as though Megan weren't there. "But my dear Mrs. Browder, I do know what I'm saying. It's common knowledge that Irish are dull-witted and lazy and therefore never able to rise above the labouring class. There's not one word of truth in that statement," Emma said. Megan's face burned hot with anger, and she gripped the seat of her chair, trying to keep from speaking the words she was thinking. Mrs. Haskell appeared flustered. One hand crept to her cheeks, where there was pink with embarrassment, and then she spoke. Her tone was conciliatory, but her words came slowly, as though she believed she could persuade Emma to listen to reason. "You're obviously not as knowledgeable about the Irish as the English are, since we have much closer dealings with them." Megan knew about those closer dealings. She well remembered Da's story about the British armies that swept across Ireland, burning homes and tearing the roofs off churches. No allegiance was allowed except to the British crown, and the property was stolen from landowners and given to subjects of England. Those Irish who immigrated to England or the United States, trying to keep from starving, found that labouring jobs were the only ones they could be given to them, if jobs were offered at all. "I'm not alone in my beliefs," Miss Haskell continued. "In Boston, it's quite unusual to see in the windows of shops and small businesses help wanted advertisements that specify no Irish need apply." She leaned fast in her chair and folded her hands in her lap as though the discussion was had come to a satisfactory conclusion. But Emma hadn't finished. "It's a pity that in Boston there's so many small-minded, mealy-mouthed people who can't see beyond the ends of their turned-up noses. I hope that living in Kansas with people who know how to value each other will broaden your education, Mrs. Haskell." Emma's eyes bored into the other woman's as she leaned forward and snapped, "And perhaps greatly improve your manners." Mrs. Haskell gasped, and her teacup rattled so hard in its saucer she had to put it down on the table. The door flew open. Ben and Mr. Haskell stomped the dust from their feet at the front stoop and stepped into the room. "Well, well," Ben said, beaming at the two women. "You should be pretty well acquainted by now. Emma told Ada and Farley that you'd be excited to have another woman as a close neighbor." Ben turned to Mrs. Haskell. "We'll see if Emma can make us a little something special for dinner to celebrate." Emma sat up straight, staring ahead of her, back stiff, and her hands so tightly folded her knuckles were white she didn't repeat the invitation. I'm sure Emma would," Ben blundered on, but Mrs. Haskell interrupted him. Trembling, she rose to her feet. "No, thank you," she said. "I wish to become acquainted with my new home as soon as possible." "But Mr. Haskell began, ignoring her husband. Mrs. Haskell glanced around the room and sighed. "Living in this primitive fashion is going to be quite a change for me." Emma's eyes narrowed with concern as she asked Mr. Haskell, "Farley, have you told Ada anything about your home?" Mr. Haskell looked uncomfortable. I never had the words to describe things easy," he stammered. "And anyhow, I figured there'd be things she'd want to do to fix it up her own way." He threw a panic-stricken glance at Ben. "I gave it a good cleaning before I left. Did it look all right to you?" "It looked fine," Ben said. "I told Emma I couldn't get over how well you cleaned it." Mr. Haskell let out a long sigh of relief, and Ben glanced from Emma to Mrs. Haskell, and Megan could see he was confused by the tension in the air. Emily said, "We can fix a basket of things for Ada to take to her new home. Put in a loaf or two of the bread you baked this morning. Some of your plum jam." Without a word, Emma walked to the kitchen table, opened the nearby cupboard, and began to put things in a woven reed basket. "Ada, you'll love Emma's wild plum jam," Ben continued. "I'm sure she'll teach you to make your own come summer when the fruit's ripe." The pups began to yip and whine, and Mrs. Haskell glanced toward their box, wrinkling her nose in distaste. She turned to Ben, and her voice was cold. "I know how to make jam, thank you. I am well versed in all the disciplines needed to operate a household." Ben rubbed his chin before he answered, and Megan could see he was sizing up Mrs. Haskell, but he said amiably, "Neighbors are a real necessity out here, where families are spaced far apart. We're glad to welcome you to the territory. If you need or want ever anything, we're right here to help you out. Farley's always been a good neighbor to us. We're mighty thankful to have him nearby." Mr. Haskell clapped a hand on Ben's shoulder and mumbled his own thanks, but Mrs. Haskell gave an imperious nod. She gracefully put on her coat, looked around the room for a mirror, finding none, and patiently pinned up her elegant hat. "As soon as I've unpacked my china, Mr. Haskell and I will invite you to dine," she said. Ben blinked with surprise. Emma strode to where Mrs. Haskell was standing and shoved a napkin-covered basket at her. Mrs. Haskell had no choice but to grab the handle before it fell on her toes. "Thank you," Mrs. Haskell said formally. "You're welcome." Emma's words were equally cold. Ben and Mr. Haskell left to hitch the horses, and Mrs. Haskell followed. Emma hesitated, obviously torn between following her basic rules of courtesy and giving in to her feelings. Firmly, she shut the door and wrapped her arms around Megan. "It's the Irish in you that makes you so special and wonderful," she murmured against Megan's hair, paying no attention to what that dreadful woman said. Megan hugged her back, having trouble getting her arms around Emma's waist, which seemed to be growing thicker each day. "I've heard things like that before," she reassured her. "There were some in New York City who had no use for the Irish, or for that matter anyone different from themselves. Ma told us to feel sorry for them, because they not only were ignorant but wanted to stay that way." Emma smiled a good description of Ada Haskell. I don't like her, Megan said. Neither do I, but who would? Emma filled the kettle from the jar that held fresh water brought from the well that morning and hung it on one of the arms of the side of the fireplace, swinging it over the fire to heat it up. It's perfectly clear why she couldn't find a husband in Boston and had to come west to marry Farley. Poor Mr. Haskell, Megan said. She peeked through the window and watched Mrs. Haskell struggle for skirts as she climbed to the seat of the wagon. Poor Mr. Haskell should have had his head examined before marrying that woman. With a clatter, Emma slammed a stack of tin plates on the table. She tries to be very grand, Megan said, and she thinks Mr. Haskell's house is like yours. I wonder what she'll do when she finds out she'll be living underground. Megan and Emma looked at each other with such mischief they burst into laughter, and at that moment Ben came in the house, and he stared at them in amazement, which made them laugh all the harder. There must be something I don't understand, he said, which caused Emma to whoop. She leaned against the table, wiping her eyes with the hem of her apron. Ada Haskell, she began, but couldn't stop laughing. Ben rubbed his chin again and turned to Megan. I didn't see anything about the woman that would cause the two of you so much merriment. Was it her hat? That set off another outburst until finally Emma was able to say, It's the idea of a woman like that having to live in a dugout. Ben didn't smile. He shook his head and said all seriously, Emma, we must set a good example for Megan. It's not right to laugh at someone's misfortune. We began our work here living in a dugout, and you know how many hardships it caused you. Emma wiped her eyes again and glanced at Megan, whose stomach ached from laughing so hard. Ben is right, Emma said. This should be a happy day for Farley, and I'm afraid it's going to be unhappy for both him and Ada. I shouldn't have laughed. I'm sorry, too, Megan said to Ben. Oh, Ben, Emma said, it wasn't what it seemed. The laughter helped us keep from being angry. Angry? Just because the woman seemed somewhat reserved? Emma told him what Mrs. Haskell had said. And for a moment, the room was filled with silence. Then Ben slammed a fist on a nearby table so hard the lamp wobbled, and Megan reached to catch it before it fell. He turned and stomped out of the house, banging the door behind him. Don't look so worried, Emma reassured Megan. Ben will work off his anger. Before long, he'll feel sorry for her, and then he'll try to think about how to make her feel welcome and accepted, so that she'll come to see the wrong of her ways and change. By the time he comes to dinner, he'll be himself again. She smiled. He's a good man, Megan. Emma was right. By the time Megan had finished feeding the pups, Ben had come back. He sat down at the table and beamed at the steaming bowls of chicken and vegetables. He bowed his head to say grace. He had an extra prayer for the well-being of Farley and Ada Haskell, and then cheerfully set to filling the plates and passing them to Emma and Megan. Farley said the election is just a few days away. Feelings are high in St. Joe. There's talk of war if Lincoln's arrested. Will you vote? Megan asked him. I wish I could. People in the territories don't have to vote, he said. Our elected representatives to Congress can debate any issue, but even he doesn't have the right to vote on it. And began to talk about Abraham Lincoln, who had come through eastern Kansas the year before on a speaking tour. Their words became a comfortable hum as Megan's thoughts drifted away. She thought again of Mrs. Haskell and pictured the woman's disapproving face. She tried to feel sorry for her, as Ma said, but Mrs. Haskell's words had hurt, and it was hard to feel anything but upset and angry. Suddenly, achingly, Megan felt lonely for her mother. It was evening, and the animals cared for and stabled, Megan and the Browders snug inside the house when Mr. Haskell arrived on foot. His tap on the door made Emma start, and she nearly dropped the lamp she was lighting. Ben glanced at the rifles on the rack near the door and called, Who's there? It's me, Farley Haskell, the visitor answered. Not Ada again, Emma breathed, but she put a fixed smile on her face and prepared to greet her neighbors. Mr. Haskell entered alone, his head and neck tucked down inside the big collar of his coat as though he were trying to find a place to hide, and put the lantern he was carrying on the table. Ben peered outside the open door. Where's Ada? Home, Mr. Haskell mumbled. She sent me out a list of things she needs and wants me to borrow. He looked apologetically at Emma. I tried to tell her she can't take from neighbors, that we'll have to ride to town for some of these things, those we can afford, but she insisted. Megan could imagine how insistent Mrs. Haskell could be. Never mind, Farley, Emma said. She took the list from his hand. Take off your coat and rest. Ben can pour some coffee for you. That is ground hickory. Mr. Haskell shrugged. It's what I'm used to. He looked so miserable that Megan felt sorry for him. She helped him take off his coat and hung it on the rack for him. Emma read the list, nodding or shaking her head at each item. I can give you some sugar. It's brown sugar, though, not the white Ada's used to. Brown's fine. And some sassafras. It's not on the list, but she brews in tea and drinks it good and hot. It'll help take away her headache. I don't have a headache powder she wants, Mr. Haskell nodded. For just a moment, Emma closed her eyes and pressed her lips as if she was trying to make a difficult decision. She gave a little sigh and said, I do have one down pillar I can lend her. My mother made it for me. Mr. Haskell looked even more miserable than before. It's not right to take it. What are neighbors for? Emma said. Of course you'll take it to Ada if it'll make her happy. She shook her head. But I don't own a down quilt. I can give you a pieced quilt. That should be good in war. Can't see that any of these things will make her happy, Mr. Haskell blurted out. She thought we'd have a real house. I should have told her most folks out here just have a dugout, but Ada didn't know that. It's my fault. I guess it never occurred to me that it would matter so much to her. She's been crying ever since I took her home. Megan felt another brief pang of guilt for anticipating Mrs. Haskell's discomfort and laughing about it. Emma patted Mr. Haskell's arm. "We'll help Ada feel at home," she said. "Everything's strange to her now, but she'll come around." "She wants a real house," Farley said. "She wants one built of lumber, and I can't afford to buy logs yet." "Tell you what, Farley," Ben said. "Why don't I help you cut sawed bricks and build you a house up away from the river?" Mr. Haskell brightened. "You think Ada would settle for a sawed house?" "It's better than a dugout," Ben said. "It would have more than one window. You could make 2 rooms in it. Ada would feel like she has a real house." "It's a kind offer. I can't thank you enough," Mr. Haskell said. His eyes glistened in the lamplight. "I'll put together as many of the things on the list as I have on hand," Emma said. "You stop worrying about Ada." As Emma set to work, Megan put the footstool and studied Mr. Haskell. He took a long sip of coffee and cradled the cup in his hands and said, "Guess she's lonely for home." "It's only natural for now," Ben said. "She'll get over it." "I suppose. I wonder how long it'll take. Maybe a couple weeks?" "No," Megan told her. "They're much longer than that." Ben and Mr. Haskell looked at her in surprise. "The loneliness is inside," Megan said, pressing her hands against her stomach. "And sometimes you forget it's there, but other times it makes a picture in your mind of the people you love, the people you left behind, and your stomach aches with the hurt of it all." "Sounds like it's familiar to you," Mr. Haskell murmured, and Megan nodded. "Even when we're laughing and talking, sometimes the loneliness comes. I never know when it will happen." "I think I understand," Mr. Haskell said. "I think I do too," Megan said. "About Mrs. Haskell, I mean." The expression in Ben's eyes as he looked at her changed from concern to pride, and Megan smiled at him, no longer caring what Mrs. Haskell had said.